Okay, in this tutorial, we are going to look at how do you develop a flashcard. And we're going to specifically focus on taking learning outcomes that you are expected to know and understand and could be examined on, and how we convert them into effective flashcards that can then be used at a later date to self-test yourself. So the first thing you want to do when developing any flashcard is to concentrate on what area of knowledge you need to learn. What do you want to develop into the flashcard? So let's start by looking at that by actually finding the area of knowledge which we might be assessed at. So we would have a learning resource that our teachers provide to us. And from that learning resource, we'd want to identify an individual learning outcome. So here is a learning outcome that you were given from your S3 revision schedule. And we can see that the particular learning outcome focuses on being able to explain, and we can just see that on the actual title there, the effect that each of the following has on temperature and rainfall. So we're actually looking at two different things here, because temperature and rainfall are different things, and how they vary across the UK. So the first thing you want to do is take your flashcard that you will be provided with and write that on one side of the card. Okay? So that is the learning outcome. Now that might be framed as an exam question. So you could take it from a list of learning outcomes, or you could actually go into a series of past papers or question booklets and do the same thing. And instead of writing a learning outcome like we can see right here on your screen, you might want to write down a key exam question on one side of your flashcard. Now what you want to do is flip the card over. And what you want to do with the flip side is you want to basically put a summary or the main points for what you would do to answer a question if it focused on this particular learning outcome. So what I've done is on the flip side of your flashcard, you want to divide the flashcard in two with a vertical line. On one left-hand side, you want to write down a little heading temperature. On the right-hand side, you want to write down rainfall. Okay. Now there are 5 key areas that can influence the temperature of an area of the UK. And we can see them listed down here. So I would suggest you write them down. You can do them as a little mind map or a little spider diagram, or just as a list like I've done. Likewise, we've then got 3 areas that can influence rainfall. Okay. Now at this point, what I'd suggest you do is pause the video and try to see if you can write a simple sentence that you would then use to explain how each one of those 5 temperature factors potentially would influence the temperature at different places in the UK. So pause the video now and try to do that. Okay, now I'm assuming when you look at your flashcard, you might have been able to explain some of these and you might not have been able to explain others. So let's just analyze what you have written. You might even want to use this as a little kind of revision tool. Did I write this? So with latitude, this is to do with how far north or south of the equator you are. That's not enough. That's just a description. That's what latitude means. But how does it influence temperature? Well, the closer to the equator you are, the more directly overhead the sun is shining. Whereas the further away from the equator you are, the more curved the earth is, and therefore the sunlight is less direct. So more northerly areas will be colder. Now that's my full detailed description. I'm not saying that you will have necessarily written that, but what you've written in this little space here should be something similar to that. Okay? Something that when you flip the card over, you remember the point. Now, altitude. Hopefully you've written something here about altitude. Did you tell me that altitude is to do with how high above sea level you are? And the higher up you are, the colder it will be. Therefore, areas that are mountainous will be colder. That would be your altitude explanation. So you will have written something for aspect possibly, or not. So aspect is the direction a slope faces. And because the sun never shines from the north, anything facing the north is always colder. Whereas southerly facing slopes will be warmer because they have the sunshine shining from that direction for most of the day. Ocean currents. How do they affect their temperatures? So if you are on the side of the country, and in this case it's the west of the United Kingdom, which is affected by the Gulf Stream. Now the Gulf Stream is a warm ocean current, and therefore the warm ocean current heats the air above it, which causes the western side of the UK to be slightly warmer than the eastern side, because the eastern side is actually heated by a cold ocean current, or cooled down by a cold ocean current. But the Atlantic, which is on the west side, is heated by the Gulf Stream. So something like that. And finally, urban. You will have hopefully written down an explanation here. So cities tend to be warmer than the countryside, and that's for two reasons. First of all, cities have got huge amounts of heating systems. People's homes, for example, have heaters in them, which causes cities to be emitting a lot more heat, which is why they're warmer. Also, because there's a lot more pollution given off by cars around cities, these actually act as a blanket over cities, causing them to be warmer. Right, now when you have a look at your flashcard, you do not need everything I've said. And as a matter of fact, that's too much on a flashcard. What you want to do, a good flashcard keeps it simple, has got the main things that when you look at it, you'll remember the explanation. Right, let's have a look at rainfall. So why does rainfall differ? Well, if you said coastal, if you are coastal, that means you are next to the sea. And because the sea has a lot of evaporation coming off it, anywhere that's near the sea is going to pick up that rain before anybody else. And therefore, most of the rain will fall in coastal areas because that's where clouds are actually forming over oceans. Relief, hopefully you've written something for that. Now that is to do with whether you are in the mountains or not. So to explain this idea, because air is forced to rise over mountains, as the air rises, it condenses, forming clouds, which means it's more likely to rain in mountainous areas. So that's how the relief of an area, or how mountainous the area is, affects rainfall, because air rises, forming clouds. And lastly, what did you write for air masses? Now, if you are near air masses that are maritime, so if you are, for example, on the western side of the United Kingdom, then you are going to be more likely to be influenced by rainfall, because maritime air masses bring rain. Whereas if you are near continents, like on the eastern side of the UK, especially in the southeast, you're more likely to be influenced by dry continental air masses, either from the tropics or from the polar regions. And because they're air traveling across land, it tends to have very little water in it, and therefore it's going to be much drier. So those are the three explanations for variations in rainfall in the UK. Okay, right, that's your first flashcard fully developed. A good-looking flashcard is organised, is neat, and has maybe used a highlighter to identify the key themes of that. So what we might have done is had these as our key ideas, and then our sub-themes are the main factors that we're looking to remember. And obviously we need to then be able to say something about each of them. It's not enough just to remember the factor. You've got to actually know how that factor influences temperature or rainfall, because this could be an explain question. All right, let's have a look at another flashcard that you can now go ahead and develop. So here's our learning outcome. I can read a synoptic weather chart and explain how the weather will have changed in both the past and the future. Now, I would suggest take a new flashcard. I would delete the next bit. I don't think the next bit is necessary. That's the skill. I'm going to actually show you this bit in a second. But what you want to write on one side of the flashcard is this, okay? But don't write it in the middle. I would suggest you write it in the top, and underneath it, we're going to focus on low pressure. So I would also write that down, maybe even put a bubble around it on your flashcard, and maybe even highlight it to make it stand out. So this is our low pressure flashcard. Now, on this side of the flashcard, what I would also do is draw what this actually looks like, okay? So low pressure is going to have isobars that are quite close together, like I'm drawing on the screen. So you want to do the same as I'm doing. And it's also going to have a warm front. I'm going to just do that with red, but you might want to do that with black. Oh, sorry, semicircles, I was doing triangles there. So this is the warm front. And warm fronts, more often than not, are paired up with cold fronts, where we have the little triangles. And of course, the direction that the little red semicircles and the blue triangles face actually tells us the direction that these things are moving, because they are moving all the time, and therefore the weather changes. Now, the one final thing you want to do is, what would the weather be? And I would suggest you locate 3 places, or you can do 2, it's up to you. I would have one place, we'll call it place A, under what we call the warm front. I would have a second place between them, and I'd have my third location somewhere, and it doesn't matter where it is, but I'm going to put it here under the cold front, okay? Now, of course, in an exam, you're going to be given a location and a weather map that might include a weather system like we're seeing here with the close together isobars and the weather front or two weather fronts on it, like I'm just showing you there. And you will then be given a location. You don't know where that location is, but what you're then to do is give the weather according to where it is. Is it in a location A? Is it B or C? It might even be somewhere like I'm doing on the screen right now. Right, on the flip side, we're going to write what the answer to this is, but here the question is, what is the weather in ABC? So we've got quite a busy flashcard, and that's a question. And what you're going to want to do is have the answer on the reverse side, so when you're self-testing, you can flip the card over and check whether you knew A, B, or C. So let's flip the card over. So we want to do two things. We want to describe the weather in A, B, and C, and we want to explain the weather in A, B, and C. Okay? And I'm just going to create a little table on my flashcard. Okay? And I'm going to write down A, B, C. And I'm going to write down A, B, C. And you want to set up your card just the same. Now, I'm going to suggest to you in a second to pause the video. And what I'd like you to do is write 5 statements about the weather for each of these on your flashcard. Okay? And once you've written your descriptions, you're going to want to write your explanations. And all of that is going to be based on this weather. So pause the video now and try to do that. Okay, what I'm now assuming is you have now completed the weather in A, B, and C. So here is your answer. So what is A? Well, let's always go with the temperature is the first thing you need to be able to tell me. The rainfall, if indeed there is rainfall, is the second thing you need to tell me. The cloud cover, is there clouds or not? What's the wind speed like? And you can write these on the front side of your flashcard if you want to remember that these are the important things to remember when it comes to revising the weather. These are the 5 questions you want to ask yourself. So in A, you should have written that the temperature is going to be warming up. There will be steady rain. There will be clouds. The wind speed will be quite high, and the wind direction will be from the southwest. Okay? Right, what is the explanation? Well, the temperature is warming up because of the arrival of the warm front. There is a warm front today, which represents a warming temperature. There is steady rain because of the warm front. Warm fronts bring steady rain. There is quite a lot of clouds, or probably 8 octaves of clouds, because of the warm front. So the warm front is giving us these 3 things. Okay. Why is the wind speed quite strong? Because the isobars are quite close together, because it's an area of low pressure. A is also quite near the center of low pressure, which is right here, I'm indicating, and therefore the winds will be quite strong. And the wind direction is coming from the southwest. Well, what was your reason? Because winds travel in an anti-clockwise direction, as I'm indicating, in an area of low pressure, and therefore area A happens to have them coming from the southwest, heading towards the northeast. But we always talk about wind coming from the southwest. So that was area A. That was the description of area A, 5 points, and the explanation for those 5 weather factors. So what about area B? Well, area B is also going to be warm because, and the reason, the explanation is it's in the warm sector. It's going to have scattered showers because it's in the warm sector. There's going to be intermittent cloud or broken cloud because it's in the warm sector. Wind speed is still going to be strong because the isobars are close together, although it's going to be a bit weaker than in A because it's a little bit further away from the center of low pressure, and the isobars are a little bit further apart in area B than they were in area A. And the wind direction is going to be probably from the west because winds travel in an anti-clockwise direction. So it's the same. Most of the explanations for B are the same for A. So what about C? Well, the temperature is going to be cooling down. The rainfall is going to be heavy. The cloud cover is going to be heavy. The wind speed is going to be strong, and the wind direction is going to be from the northwest. Your explanations: cooling down because it's the cold front arriving, which means the cold air is arriving. Rainfall is heavy because of the cold front. Cloud cover is heavy because of the cold front. So that's these first three dealt with. Wind speed is going to be probably about the same as it is in area A. It's going to be strong because the isobars are close together, and it's also very close to the center of low pressure. And finally, wind direction is coming from the northwest because air travels in an anti-clockwise direction in an area of low pressure. Right, you've got a very, very busy flashcard now, and it's really going to be really useful for you to do self-testing. To finish off with, what you could now do is develop a flashcard, in this case for high pressure, and on one side draw isobars that are far apart, pop a location on it, like here for example. That's all you need. You don't have any weather fronts with high pressure, so we won't be talking about cloud cover. We'll be saying there are clear skies. Same idea though. What's the temperature likely to be? Remember, time of year is quite important about the temperature with high pressure. It's very cold in winter, very hot in summer. Rainfall, you do need to talk about it, but in this case, of course, it's going to be none. Cloud cover, you do need to talk about it. Of course, there aren't going to be any clouds because air is sinking. Your wind speed, well, very little because the isobars are very far apart. And your wind direction is going to be different because, of course, wind travels in a clockwise direction in an area of high pressure. So in area A, it's coming from there. So the flip side of this flashcard will look a little bit the same as the previous one you've done. The only difference is you're only looking at one area, an area A, but you are looking to be able to describe the 5 aspects of the weather that we've just indicated here, 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 and here. And you want to also explain based on the evidence from the weather map you are given.